there's a certain amount of assumption about what marketing means whenever you talk to engineers. There's actually a fair bit of variation. One of the great things about all the engineers I work with is they ask so many good questions, right? So if the engineers can be open-minded and ask questions, it creates an opportunity for collaboration, right? I think it's pretty common for marketers to not be budget-minded or not be revenue-minded. There are marketers who don't pay attention to the bottom line. And that's why a lot of marketers are not invited into the boardroom, because they don't know how to talk to the things that boards care about.
All right. Today's episode is about where marketing is going in the future. This isn't hype. This isn't surface level AI talk. This is about real structural shifts. And I am joined by Cory Huff, head of marketing at Andrews Cooper. He's a former Discogs marketing leader. He's the author of How to Sell Your Art Online, and someone who has operated across SaaS, engineering, creative markets, and high growth environments. Cory sits at an interesting intersection, one of technical organization, AI adoption, and real-world revenue accountability. In this conversation, we're going to unpack, 1, why AI is reshaping discovery before buyers ever talk to sales. 2, the differences between clever marketing and structured indexable marketing. 3, why engineers don't hate marketing. They just hate bad marketing. 4, the founder messaging mistake that quietly kills growth. And 5, what kind of marketers will survive the next 5 years. If you're a founder, operator, or a marketing leader trying to understand how AI, data, and revenue strategy actually converges, this one matters. Now, let's get into it. Hi, Mr. Cory Huff.
Hey, Laura, good to see you again.
Starting at the beginning, Cory, if you are able to just introduce who you are, what position you currently have, but as is the nature of marketing, you have quite a portfolio of experiences and industries that you have touched and engaged in. Describe what you do, if you have particular sweet spots, and how you describe your strengths and superpowers in marketing.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm currently the head of marketing for Andrews Cooper. We are a B2B engineering services firm specializing in hard tech, which is mostly mechanical and electrical engineering for very complex devices, things like medical devices or very cutting edge consumer electronics, that kind of stuff. So I have been at Andrews Cooper for about 6 months, but prior to AC, I had worked in e-commerce in the music industry. A shout out Discogs. That was a super fun gig. I worked in the fine art industry for about 6 years. I wrote a book for the fine art industry called How to Sell Your Art Online, which continues to sell. It's been, it'll be 10 years. This year's the 10th year anniversary of the book. And I'm still getting royalty checks from it. So that's fantastic.
That's awesome.
It means the artists are still like getting help from it. So I love that.
That's great.
And I've also worked in, earlier in my career, I did agency work and I also did like software startups, SaaS startups. So I've kind of been, all over the place a little bit. And I've done a fair bit of consulting as well. So what I usually tell people is that my superpower is enthusiasm. Over the course of my career, what has enabled me is my enthusiasm for technology and my enthusiasm for people. I really love building teams, helping junior marketers like learn and grow and figure out how to, get where they need to go, and working with artists and creators all over.
I was curious about that because I was looking through like your track record and how it did start in the creative circles. How have you found that your engagement with creatives has informed your current role, specifically in engineering?
I love this question because I got into this my second week on the job. We had a leadership retreat, so like the timing worked out just right for me to start. And so I spent a week on retreat with about 20 engineers. So I just got to go deep into what everybody was doing. And, a lot of my close friends are engineers. So it's a mindset that I'm comfortable with, but my brain doesn't work that way. Right? Like doesn't work in that very technical, break things all into all of its component pieces kind of way. But then as I was getting into, I just walked around and asked everybody, what's the hardest engineering problem you've ever had to solve? Right. And as people told me their stories, I realized that professional artists and engineers actually approach their problems in very similar ways. Right. Artists approach it as a form of self-expression, and engineers approach it as a technical problem to be solved. But really it's, I want to do a thing. How do I break that thing down into its components so I can figure out how to do each individual component and then create a finished thing, right? So whether it's a, life-saving defibrillator that delivers a shock off of a cell phone battery, or it's a 30-foot hanging mobile piece of art that's going to hang over a bridge in Hawaii. Like
Mm.
the process of doing those things are it is very similar. And the
Mm.
mindset of, I don't know how to do this, but I'm going to figure it out is very similar.
Do you approach a project sort of that intake process? Do you feel like it's pretty consistent, like schematically saying, identify, construction, timeline, deadline, here we go, first step, last step, this is my proposal. Like, is that consistent
That's
for you? Or
very
do you
how
feel
it
like,
works for that's very how it works for engineers, but I
yeah,
think the process for artists often looks more chaotic. Now, I have
yeah,
a couple of good friends who are like, one of my good friends started his career as an engineer and then became an artist. So yeah, his process definitely looks that way or
yeah,
something very similar to that. But I've also known artists who their process looks like chaos, right?
yes,
And they're actually doing all of those steps, but they might be doing them in an order that doesn't necessarily make sense to other people.
yeah,
And the steps inform each other. There is a beauty to it because in the artistic process, the discoveries inform the process, right? And engineers can sometimes get lost in the process where they
mm,
might discover something later, but then they go, you know what, that's not in scope, so I'm not going to do it. I got to deliver this thing on time, right?
right,
So
right,
there are trade-offs, there are different ways of doing things. And I'm, generalizing, right? There are
for
engineers
sure.
who are a little more chaotic and there are artists who are a little more structured.
Yeah.
And then there are also like,
I'm curious though, like as now that you are needing to bridge the gap between communication or even like the how different the process can be, do you have to translate to engineering, like speak the language of linear when you're like, I know I'm not going to approach this linearly, but to get their buy-in or just their feedback that's constructive, I need to try to speak their language. How do you navigate and translate?
I'm pretty good at communication. I've
Yeah.
been doing this for a long time, so I feel like I understand how engineers communicate.
Mm.
And usually if I'm talking with an engineer and they start to get that suspicious or curious look on
The
their face,
glaze.
you can see it, right? Hang on. I can see the wheels spinning. What questions do you have right now? And
Yeah.
engineers, bless them. I love partnering with them because they have infinite questions, right?
Yep.
Like they have all these questions. And so if I'm bringing an idea for marketing to the team, the engineers on the team will go, well, what about these things? And what about these things? And what about these things? And
Mm.
so there's a little bit of back and forth and process that has to happen, right?
Yeah.
And engineers are sort of constitutionally averse to marketing.
Mm.
They don't like anything that feels like marketing or looks like marketing or smells like marketing.
Yeah.
So what I often will do is couch what I'm doing in terms of engineering terms, right? I'll say let's build a hardware community, right? Instead of trying to say something like
An
I'm going to do.
IRL event.
Yeah, yeah. We're not going to do an event. We're going to do a hardware community.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So there's an element of understanding just the culture of engineers, the mindset, and couching your communication in their terms. And then also with AI now, I have a red team engineering CEO agent that reviews all of my work and troubleshoots it for me or tells me what's wrong with it from an engineering standpoint.
Wait, you have a red team CEO. Wait, what does that mean?
Okay, so red teaming is like an engineering term for finding everything that's wrong with a project,
Mm.
right? Or I want to find everything that's wrong with it or break it. So
Hmm.
I have a project in one of our AI tools that is basically like the instructions tell it to act like a CEO of an engineering company who's very skeptical of marketing. It knows our positioning, it knows all of our marketing strategy, but it's super skeptical of everything
Mm.
that I do in terms of marketing and how it's going to look and
And this is
whether
like
or not
just a
the other engineers are
GPT,
going to like it. Yeah,
like
yeah.
a
It's just
GPT
it's
that you
just a
thought.
project in Chat GPT or
Yeah, yeah,
one of
yeah.
those, right?
Okay.
And I will build a marketing brief for a project, and then I will say, "Please rip this apart," and then it will do that, right? And I've kind of tweaked it a little bit so that it's got some flavor from some of the people that I work with, like some of the things that I know that they're gonna consistently point out or consistently reject,
Yeah.
and then I have it kind of filter whatever projects I'm working on through that frame.
That's fantastic. That's so healthy. So if you were to talk to somebody who is stepping into marketing for engineering, this is a twofold question, but I'll ask the one that's you counseling the marketer. That three things that would help them be more effective in engineering spheres and what you would advise to them.
Go slow. Engineers are by their nature cautious, methodical, thoughtful. So go slow.
Mm,
Understand them deeply. Make sure that you understand what's driving all the other stuff, right? Understand that even though engineers are very logical and are very thoughtful, they do have emotions and they do have feelings and preferences and even aesthetic preferences,
mm,
right? They may not know how to express them in the same way as an artist or somebody who is more comfortable in those areas, but
yeah.
they do have feelings and you have to learn how to navigate those feelings, validate them and acknowledge them without it like kind of crossing over into like weird therapy speak. And you just have to acknowledge
Wait,
that they
we're all human? What?
know, right? So just go slow, build relationships, go as deep as you can on the technical piece, understand the common language, read all of the like common project documents, right? Every engineering company is like super organized. So they all have like
Mm,
files and files of all their projects. Go read all the project briefs so that you understand how does the company typically talk about projects,
mm,
right? And you'll learn a lot about your team by seeing how things are organized and how those project briefs are written.
yeah.
And the third one is look for the fastest small wins that you can establish. Right. So for me, for example, that was the team knew that they didn't like the way that certain slide decks looked. Right. They knew that it wasn't aesthetically good, but they didn't know how to articulate what they wanted. So the first thing I did was try to fix that. Right.
Gotcha.
And there's lots more, but those are the things. Go slow, build relationships, understand the team, and look for quick wins. That's four.
And have you found that trust factor, because there is such an aversion to marketing, typically, like those fields there's such a rub there that you have gotten buy-in the more that you communicate at that level?
It's a good question. I'm 6 months in. I'll let you
There you
know.
I'll ask your boss.
But I think so. I think so. We have some plans for the rest of the year and beyond. And so far, I think we're on the same page.
That's cool. Okay, the other way around though, how do you help engineers engage with marketing so that they aren't their worst enemy?
I would say, to paraphrase Ted Lasso, like be curious, not judgmental.
Mm,
Right? There's a certain amount of assumption about what marketing means
mm,
whenever you talk to engineers. There's actually a fair bit of variation because
yeah.
some engineers hate ads and some engineers hate like talking to marketers or talking to salespeople, right? But finding out what they hate about marketing or rather asking the engineers to be open-minded about what marketing actually means
Mm,
and then to ask a lot of questions. One of the great things about all the engineers I work with is they ask so many good questions, right? So if the engineers can be open-minded and ask questions, it creates an opportunity for collaboration, right?
mm,
And the
got
best
it.
engineers are the ones who are curious and open, who know they don't know everything and they can go, oh, you know what? I never would have thought about it that way, but yeah, that might actually work. Right. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of marketing that is fails because it's poorly executed,
Mm,
even though it might be the right idea or the right strategy.
yeah.
And so an engineer can look at a problem and go, this is how that thing should be built. And the engineering plan can be executed well, or it can be executed poorly. It can be
Mm.
executed with great materials, or it can be executed with cheap, crappy materials. And you can have two engineers do the same project and one do well and one do poorly. Same thing with marketing.
Marketing is just in a really interesting spot in history. How would you speak to necessary angles and tactics and execution so that marketing is effective in 2026?
I just read this report from last year that said that 70% of technical buyers will use AI to research their topic
Mm,
before they ever talk to a salesperson,
right.
right? So it's possible that the engineer knows more than you by the time they get to a salesperson,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So how does that inform your marketing execution?
Mm,
uh, are you in all the places that the AIs are going to index, right? Are you in the media? Are you on Reddit? Are you on the socials, right? Are you talking in a way that or is your website built in a way that it can be indexed and ingested
mm,
by the AI tools? Do you have discovery tools, not just like cost estimators or cost calculators, but like actual product discovery tools. Like, can you
Agreed.
help your engineers solve a problem? Then there's the human side of it. The human side of B2B marketing matters a lot more when all information is easily discoverable basically instantly. If you can do a search on Gemini and it's going to tell you, all right, there's 5 companies that can do the project that you want to do. And here's a case study from each of them. The company that wins is the company that has relationships.
Yeah. And I found myself as much as like anytime, I mean, change management is challenging at a societal level and in the marketing industry. You can feel how different aptitudes or, old dogs not wanting to learn new tricks or the young kids wanting to be way too spry but not concrete in data. And you have like these like different aversions to different parts of the changing landscape. I'm refreshed though that some of the hierarchy of important things of execution are data driven. That to truly index isn't to necessarily play the keyword game or who's going to throw the most money at an ad. It's now like no like legitimately they're going to call your bluff if you don't have information. The AEO is wanting to make sure that you're viable and legitimate beneath the surface layers. And I feel like that caliber expectation is going to allow the solid entities to win. Or theoretically,
Yeah.
you can also then get like super crappy businesses able to play the game really well. And then all of a sudden they got about a bunch of fake data and AEO has them pumped to the top. And you're like, you should not be at the top of this search.
That
How did
won't
you
last.
win?
Honestly, that is playing such a short-term game. Like when I was at Discogs, you can imagine how much data there is in music, right? A big part of my job there was just making sure that our data was literally structured correctly. Like that
Mm,
is just making sure that we followed schema.org markup and the data did our job for us
yeah.
to a certain extent, right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that I'm seeing now in B2B companies that have their data organized and accessible, and even their unstructured data, like all your presentations and pitches and case studies and all that stuff that doesn't neatly fit in a database. Can you
Right.
find a way to use that data in a way that allows the discovery engines to easily find it?
If you were to give like the top 10 pieces of data that agnostically should be priority, would you advise, like, or even low hanging fruit, being like, make sure you have an FAQ page? I heard AEO's like one of the things is that if you have two different headers on a web page, it starts to disqualify the page.
Yeah.
Are there other low hanging fruits that you would say attend to this data that should be available no matter what business you are?
Yeah. Realistically, with like Codex or Claude Code, there's no excuse to not have that stuff fixed relatively quickly.
Mm.
If you hook up your systems correctly, Codex or Claude should be able to just make a punch list of all the things that need to be fixed, and then
Oh, that's
either
cool.
fix them for you or walk you through how to fix it.
Yeah.
There's at the enterprise level, there's some permission issues and some safety
Mm.
issues. Your IT team might not allow you to do things like that.
Right.
You can Google SEO or AEO basics. It will you can get a punch list from any of the tools that will tell you what
For
things
sure.
you need back on your website. In
Okay.
B2B, the things that we are prioritizing right now, number one is we're just updating the website with like FAQs about our different services, right? Because
Mhm.
engineering can get very in the weeds very quickly, right?
Yeah.
Does your company have experience doing XYZ, this really like obscure, narrow thing? So we're literally just trying to put as many of those things on the website as we can,
Yeah.
making the website look as professional as we can. We're rolling out a new website very soon. So case studies, FAQs, and then like explanations of what you do. Here's what we did and here's what we do. Like making that as clear as possible is where we're prioritizing right now.
I love that.
We do have a project going right now where we are creating an internal wiki of all of our projects. Now, Andrews Cooper's 25 years old. We've done
Oh,
thousands.
that's awesome.
Yeah. So this is a non-trivial endeavor, but it's an internal wiki that takes all of our projects and automates the creation of, Wikipedia style pages that we can use
Yeah.
internal to find angles and which vendors we used for which kinds of projects, like that kind of stuff. But
That's
that's it.
awesome.
Yeah.
My mom used to use a phrase when I was little. She says, "Every bunny has a home," and then use that to incite how we organized our house and whether or not our rooms were clean. And then now, as a professional in different spaces or helping businesses get their systems under order, I'm like, every bunny should have a home, but y'all are procreating with zero burrow. So, how would you define marketing and how would you define the department you're overseeing as a director to any company that needs to build out their marketing department? Like, what is marketing seems to be a nebulous sort of foray.
What is marketing? Marketing is the act of getting the people who don't know about your service or your company to find out about it and to understand why it matters, right? Like
Mhm.
at its heart, that's what marketing is. Marketers, they really specialize. They're like, I am a B2B SaaS marketer. I have a playbook that I run at every company that I work at. And if you hire me, this is the playbook I'm going to run, right? That's not me. I want to understand what is the root problem? Why does the market not understand the company? What does the company have to do in order to reach the people that they need to reach? And why hasn't it happened before?
Right.
Right. And to me, that's what marketing is understanding how to make the connection between what your company does and the people who need that service.
Yeah. I can imagine especially being more agnostic in posture and now in a very specific frame of reference. Do you feel that when you get into the immediate question of like, okay, so then what are you going to do for us? That's what you are, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And you can say, well, everybody needs to know about you. If you're able to provide concrete data informed
Yeah.
channels with ROI attached to it, have you found there to be a streamlined way to communicate, prioritize channel per entity so that they trust you to lead the roadmap while communicating there are some things that are soft and needing to be tested and iterated. How do you navigate that process?
I think at the leadership level, it has to start during the interview process, right? Before you ever take on a new marketing project or a new marketing job, it's got to be how open is this company to what they need to do, right?
Mm,
Some companies are just not open to making the changes that have to happen in order for marketing to be successful,
mhm,
right? They're not going to put enough budget into it or they're whatever. For me, in a situation like Andrews Cooper, I think that you have to go in and understand, you have to show that you understand who they're marketing to, right? In our case,
mm,
it's, directors and VPs of engineering at enterprise companies and then startup technical founders,
mhm,
right? So there's a little bit of homework you have to do beforehand. You got to
mm,
understand that that you know who they're marketing to, that you understand how those people operate, and then you have to demonstrate that you understand how to reach those people. And that's going to be a little different for every company, but in a B2B engineering services company, it's going to be, trade organizations like the papers and the news and the newsletters that those people read, right?
mm,
The events that they go to and the influencers that they're listening to, who are the
mm,
podcasts that they're listening to, the writers they're reading, and the industry executives that they're following.
mm.
That everything else kind of flows from there. Your social media strategy flows from there. Your content strategy flows from there. And who you need to hire flows from there. All that.
Do you think that because you described two very different verticals, like from enterprise level VPs leading massive entities, and then you have the startup fancy pants people who want to change the world. I mean, those personas are so drastically different. I know that you've just begun 6 months ago. Do you imagine those being two different racetracks
Wait,
to run or
wait.
different worlds?
Every company wishes that they had like a single uh, customer avatar, right?
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah.
some companies do a great job with just having one ICP and they go get all that business and then go find another one. But most companies, I think, are going to have a couple of avatars that they have to go after.
Right. So how you doing?
Well, I'm busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, as you build your team or even navigate as a department, do you find that have a pretty clear scope of what kind of contractors you bring on to do the in the weed stuff as you head the department? How do you draw those lines with what you do and don't do?
I think 6 months in, I would say that I have some strong hypotheses, and that's the way that I've positioned that to our team.
Okay.
I have to our leadership team and to my marketing team. I have some ideas. I think this is what we need to do, and I think that's what we need to do.
Mm,
And so we're going to hire accordingly, and we're going to spend accordingly. But we also have some ideas around when that needs to start to show ROI, right?
mm. Yeah.
So we're going to spend X amount of time and dollars on something and then see what the result is the approach
Gotcha.
that I'm taking right now. Because I don't think that, in an it depends on the maturity of the organization, right? Like if you're going into a much more mature marketing org, then you might just be looking at all the reports and figuring out what the company's already doing well
Mm,
and make sure that you keep doing that and then cut the fat. It just depends on the maturity of the org.
yeah. Coming from my perspective, because I'm working in the startup arena, it is in that go-to-market stage or even like Series A to C where it's super scrappy. They're trying to figure out, they need to move the needle. Have you found a way to articulate, this is how you prioritize? You've
Mm.
talked about vetting the ICP, you've talked about being able to navigate AEO, but when you start actually, here is an 90-day execution roadmap, and this is why I'm choosing to say you should do this.
I don't think that I can give a formula, right?
Yeah,
It's so different for every company because every company, like there's all the ICP stuff and all the target client stuff, but there's also the personality of the team. Like, what kind of marketing are they going to be good at? What are they willing to do? What are they willing to say that other companies
yeah.
might not be willing to say?
Mm.
Right? What kind of design are they going to be okay with versus, maybe they just want to look like a very boring company, but other companies might want to look more, dangerous and exciting. It really depends on the personality of the founders and the team.
I love that you just described it wasn't like safe and dangerous, it was boring and dangerous. I can sniff out some of your proclivity.
I'm willing to try all kinds of weird things, but that's not what every situation calls for.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like your ability to read a room is probably something that is reliable and trustworthy, especially in an engineering environment that makes it more sound and constructive.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't that way younger in my career. Earlier in my career, I definitely tried things that I should not have tried.
Yeah.
Uh, that's how you learn. That's how
It's
you
like the
learn.
scene in Inception. You remember, like, where they're trying to take care of all the bad guys? He brings out an AK-47, and he's like, "No, no, no, no," and he brings out a bazooka, and he's like, "You gotta dream a little bigger, darling." Just gotta get a bazooka every now and then. Let's go.
Every once in a while, you just got to take a big swing.
It's true. When regarding getting into the weeds a little bit, just with your expertise, what's the biggest messaging mistake startups make when they try to scale from early adopters to wider markets? Yeah, no, I
So
appreciate it.
I think a lot of startups are too generic and too boring. They don't
Mm,
understand who their audience is. They don't understand what they're trying to say. They don't understand why people should buy their product, right? You get the curse, the founder curse, right? Is like, oh, my product is so cool. I made it. I made this really cool thing and nobody understands it, right?
yeah,
Nobody cares about your product until they understand how it solves their problems.
yeah.
So the messaging mistake is not being crystal clear about how your product or your service.
Tuned. How have you found over the years and moving into a new arena of AI where marketing really does need to have a synergistic relationship with sales and revenue ops? I observe that marketing is shifting in what is going to be the paid skill sets and
Mhm.
the operations that are going to be needed to be done by humans with analysis and synthesis. But then, if they're not connected with a sales healthy pipeline and sensitive to revenue, then marketing will no longer be able to hide in this enigma of awareness or metrics. And how do we be strong marketers that really harness AI and a growing value for sales, rev ops, and marketing to work together? How can we champion that?
Marketing leadership has to be in tune with sales and rev ops, right? Like
Yeah,
there needs to be regular conversation there about what the goals are, what the sales team is seeing in the field. All of that is intelligence for the marketing team.
yeah,
They get anecdotal, qualitative feedback about how people are perceiving the company, right? And you can
yeah.
make adjustments to your marketing based on that. And you also need to be a good collaborator. I think that the marketing skills of the future, one is going to be, and these are probably like two different people or groups of people.
Mm,
One is going to be the people who understand structured data, right? You've got the marketing ops people. These
mm,
are the ones who are running CRMs. They're the ones who are doing data science or they're talking to the data scientists a lot. They're analysts, those kind of people, right? Like because the AI world requires good data, right?
mm,
The other one is people with good taste,
mm.
aesthetics. right? People with better taste execute better with AI.
Mm.
When you see, you can give me an AI tool and you can give somebody else an AI tool, and our inherent taste and aesthetics are going to come through in whatever we build with that. So marketers with better taste are going to be better marketers because the tools are just going to accelerate whatever you already know how to do.
That's challenging. I think that's, like, so healthy to keep at the front of the mind. There's a potential I see of laziness or just fatalism, being like, "Well, I guess my job's about to get taken." And I was like, "Well, if you can't be tenacious in this burgeoning era, it is gonna do a little bit of that sifting of, are you ready to drive and move needles no matter the arena? And what kind of human operation are like an additive of value because of your taste and acumen that you can harness what is powerful, but still bring in that insight that can't be duplicated by a robot? That really is an intuitive, relationally minded, story compelled sort of fronting. So that's good to hear. And I like how you delineated two types of marketers because I feel like the people who are more oriented around taste can be like, "Oh my gosh, but I have zero propensity for data." And then data
That
people
is
are like, "I guess I'm on the chopping block."
that is the general way that it tends to.
Mm. I think the third one I would add, though, is the ability to communicate to leadership. We need this storytelling. We need to be in these environments because in 5 years, I think that this is how our brand will be very loud. That might not be the taste person's perspective or the data person's perspective, but how do you keep vision the one that moves things forward?
I think the ability to communicate with leadership, it just has to be developed in junior marketers. Like you have to give them opportunities to present to leadership, give them an opportunity to lead meetings here and there, and give them chances to develop that skill.
Yeah, a friend of mine, side note, this morning is working on her dissertation and it's slowly morphing around the thesis that marketing should be at the C-level table, that it should be in the board meetings. And I was like, "Explain why that needs to be a dissertation." And she's like, they're usually not."
They're usually
I was like,
not.
"Explain that." And
I think it's pretty common for marketers to not be budget minded or not be revenue minded. There are marketers who don't pay attention to the bottom line. And that's why a lot of marketers are not invited into the boardroom because they don't know how to talk to the things that boards care about. When I came on board at Andrews Cooper and I started asking about budgets and talking to our head of finance, he was a little surprised. He was a little surprised that I
really.
cared.
Um, on the note of finance, do you hold true to, like, theoretically a company should spend 5 to 10% of their AGR on marketing?
Yes.
Have you ever been in a company that actually adopts that?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, I see, I have not. Is that a
It's
tooth and
much
nail?
much harder in startups, right?
Right.
Unless you've got like a giant pile of VC money. It's much harder in startups, but
Yeah,
larger companies, a lot of them spend, a big chunk of money on marketing.
that's good. I had an investor just told me, I interviewed her a couple weeks ago, and she said I said, "What would be compelling in regards to a startup's building with marketing? Like, how do they see that as valuation for
Mhm.
what they're building?" And she's like, "Oh, if I hear that they have a marketing advisor with some sort of credibility backing and communicates metrics with this relationship, by far 20 to 30% more of my money will go to that person." Like, she was so compelled by whether or not they could describe and explain the structure and prioritization of marketing. And she said 20 to 30% of the AGR. Like, if I'm gonna cough up $1 million to make sure you get to, 0 to 1, then I wanna know a very large chunk of that money is gonna actually go to telling your story and getting buy-in. I was
It's
like, "Can you say that louder?"
it's much easier to invest in a company that has an actual go-to-market plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I know that you're about to get on stage for a very specific vertical, and
Mhm.
that is in medical devices. Is there anything different for medical devices in regards to marketing counsel?
Sure, everybody's way more conservative and regulation is a huge, like, obstacle, right?
Yeah.
Everybody cares about privacy, about data. So those are all things you have to take into account. My talk at the Med Device Summit is going to be about building internal tools with AI,
Yeah.
building agents and building other tools that you can use, and how to keep the data that needs to be private, and stay compliant with all that. And then just enabling your team, how to show your team how to do stuff in a way that remains compliant but is still effective.
Can you give cliff notes? That way I can, like, give a little commercial?
I mean, The short answer is anonymize your data and use an MCP server that keeps all that data private. It's more work and it costs more, but that's what you have to do if you're going to be perfectly compliant.
Gotcha. And MCP, I don't know that word. Can you explain that?
MCP server is basically it's a specialized database that holds all the data that your AI is going to process, right? So basically, if you're using like Chat GPT, you might have an MCP server that has all of your company data in it. And MCP servers are set up in a way that makes it easier for AI to talk to. And then if you use some steps to anonymize the data, you can then have the AI work with the data, but the data doesn't actually go into the AI.
Hmm.
So you're not disclosing any data. It's
Got it.
just hashed. And so the AI can do things. It just doesn't actually see your end data.
So if audience members are like, "What is that and how do I adopt that?" Is the adoption of that sort of infrastructure arduous, or is it something that they just need to have as an action item?
If your data engineering team is willing to, give you a couple tickets worth of work, it's not a terribly difficult thing to do. Unless you're a larger company and you have a ton of data, and then, that's a whole other thing. But it's not terribly difficult technically. The hard part is jumping through all the hoops to make sure that everything's compliant.
Gotcha. Well, I look
Yeah.
forward to hearing more from that, and it'll be fun to see what questions come out of it and what companies where it really resonates or where it feels like daunting, or if it is the future of helping this particular industry be more agile and effective in how they utilize AI in their marketing. There's so many good ideas, especially in medical devices, but you can feel that sluggishness and that sense of like, there's so much regulation. I don't even know if I can get through that sludge. But to see if there are guardrails and some of these tools that are coming out to make that more agile. Have you found any tools specifically harpooning that environment that you have been impressed with, that you're interested to learn more about?
You mean like marketing tools built for medical device companies?
Yeah.
No, everything's custom. I'm not aware of anything that's been built, any commercial product that's been built specifically for med device. Everything I've seen so far has been an off the shelf product that's been adopted, or it's an open source product that an internal team has used to build something.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And do you see with that sort of like demand that building customized AI infrastructure or solutions is the best way to go for a lot of these companies?
Yeah, I talked to some senior marketing folks at BD and another big med device company. And, those companies are building their own entire internal models, right?
Hmm.
At a certain scale, those companies have a massive advantage when it comes to data. And they're going to build a tool that, uses all of their own internal data and doesn't even connect to the chat GPTs and Geminis of the world.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that'll be fun to see how it matures. Cool. Any last thoughts as you sit in a place that you are the older to the younger, that you have expertise and diversity in your own portfolio and experience? What would you want to leave people with as we step into this new year that you think are really critical to be strong marketers or to build a community that is sound and trustworthy?
This is going to sound really cliche,
Yeah.
but work hard and build relationships
Mm.
and you'll be okay. In as much as any of us are going to be okay in an AI future, that's what it takes.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you, Corey, and I look forward to seeing you in person in a few short weeks. And I appreciate all of your insight.
Thanks so much, Laura. It's great to chat with you.
All right, we'll see you later.